Hey, 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 beautiful people. Odu Adamu here in Brooklyn, right outside of the Barclays Center. Now, it's warm here today in Brooklyn, and there's a lot going on, but nothing compared to how hot it's going to be here November 3rd when the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony going down right here at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. Several incredible acts being inducted this year, one of whom I had an opportunity to talk to, the Detroit Spinners. Yet I'm talking over 7 decades of music and now being honored in 2023 with an induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I got to chill with Jesse Peck and Ronnie Moss, talk about the Spinners, what it means for them, and what's happening for them now. So sit back and enjoy us soul talking. Get into that today as we talk, but let me introduce the gentlemen who are here. Of course, it's the Spinners, as you know, and today we have in the house Mr. Ronnie Moss and Mr. Jesse Peck.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
I know.
All right.
Well, we're here. So, and we're going to have this conversation. And excuse us, there may be a little delay, so I'm not jumping on top of them. It's just, y'all know how technology works. So we know what's happening. I'd like you both to share a little bit about what you were doing musically before you got to the Spinners.
Well, I'll go first because mine includes a little bit of Ronnie Moss. I'll jump to the part that's just before the Spinners. The last thing I was doing musically, I was living born in New York, raised in Detroit. I was doing radio in the city of Flint, Michigan. I love Flint. And I was working on the radio. And even then, I was playing a song from a local guy named Ronnie Moss. Right. I'd never met him before, but he was a part of our playlist on the radio. I got to meet him shortly thereafter when I joined a group called Unique, along with Marvin Taylor, who's also a member of the Spinners. We did some great things. We did a lot of great performances. We performed even on the Montel Williams show. It's the only time that Montel Williams deviated from his general programming, and he actually did a music show, a Motown show. So we got to even be a part of that, along with the Apollo and all that. We did a lot of great shows. They were an awesome group. It was shortly after that, some years after that, that I got the opportunity to join the Spinners, and I'll save that process for later if you ask that.
Oh, it's gonna come up.
Yeah, but while I was in Unique, Ronnie Moss was already a legend, that I would hear about, and I met him a few times. I'm like, this is Ronnie, nice little quiet, down to earth dude. He was real cool, and he's still that same cool guy today. I'm happy to be working with him.
Okay. All right, and that segues right to you, Ronnie.
I'll try to narrow it down, but yeah, I'm from Flint as well. Raised in Buffalo, New York, and Flint, Michigan. I got into music back in the day, coming up through middle school, then high school, and I was doing some major plays, doing some acting, and then I joined a group, the Velvetones, back in the day. We did a lot of stuff. Actually, I was one of the founding members of that group, and we started doing things in high school, and then we got on a kind of like a professional level after high school. And we did that for so many, I'll probably say maybe 3 years after that. And then I left the group and I started working in Detroit. I started doing a lot of major studio work, doing background vocals for people, doing writing. I went to engineering school in Detroit and Chillicothe, Ohio. Then on top of that, I am a percussionist. So I started playing percussions for a lot of jazz groups. a lot of big jazz groups. I started playing percussions and still singing. From that point, I moved to Atlanta, Georgia, started playing behind a lot of big artists, a lot of R&B big artists, and then I started releasing CDs and started writing and writing for people, and I'm trying to just narrow it as quick as I can.
Yeah, this is the short version. We're gonna need a commercial
Just
break.
the short version.
We'll be back with more Ronnie after this.
Yeah, and then from that point, I got involved with, like I said, a lot of different groups, and then I got this call out of nowhere, and then it was like, we need you. We need you to come try out for this group. So I'll stop there, and then you can come back to that.
Okay, and I guess this group was the Spinners. So, so we'll get into that. Let's pick this up about how you then get to the Spinners.
Wow. Okay, I guess I'll go first. Well, for me, it came at a time where I was out of the radio business. I was out of entertainment, period. I was working a regular job, regular guy, regular life, and which was totally depressing. And I wanted nothing more than to get back in the biz. I got wind first. I'd heard about the passing of Purvis Jackson, the original bass singer for the Spinners. And from my research, from what I understand, from what I've learned from meeting his people and his family, he was a wonderful individual, very funny man, and they were very big shoes to fill. I auditioned in August. Purvis passed away in August of 2008. I auditioned later in that month, and initially I was told by Henry Fambro and Bobby Smith, the original Spinners, there would just be a few weeks. They needed to move quickly on this. And the next thing I know, I called Henry. He said, well, it's going to be a little longer now. I got people coming out of the woodwork. I'm like, oh, God, great. Everybody in the world is auditioning for this. It's like, oh, man, competition is going to be steep. I was just hoping that I would be blessed, to be the one to actually get the position. And turns out it was me. I was the person that Henry chose. And I was excited. I was honored. It changed my world. It changed everything, and it was a confirmation that dreams do come true. All of that, live your dreams, and as a man thinketh, so is he. All of those things and thoughts and affirmations came to fruition. That moment I got the call from Bobby and Henry saying, "Congratulations, you are now, a Spinner." And some 16 years later, it still feels just as new. It still feels just as wonderful.
Now, Ronnie, you left us with the call. So what was the call? What happened?
All of a sudden I get this call, and it said, and he said, well, man, you need to start working out because Henry want to meet you. I told him about you. And this is Marvin, our other member. Marvin's from Flint as well. And I'm thinking, like, I don't really feel like being joked around, messed around again, not again, I've been kind of sought after from some other groups and some other acts, like in New York, but it was always a lot of things that didn't work out. Oh, you got to do this. Well, we'll wait. We'll get back to you. This, that, and the other. And I got so tired of it. I just kind of I just took a step aside and I just started doing studio work at my house, and I said, not even thinking about the Spinners. That was the furthest thing from my mind. The group that I played with, I was playing percussions with, they left with Tyler Perry and they didn't take me. They didn't need a percussionist. So I was mad about that.
Aww.
And so they called me, and Henry called me, and like within maybe a week and a half, he called me and introduced himself and this and that and the other. And he said, can you get here so I can see you? See, and at that time, I was living in Atlanta. I mean, I still do, but I was living in Atlanta. But he didn't offer to fly me there. I had to get myself there. And I just lo and behold, I lived around the corner from a friend that retired from the airlines, and she gave me the buddy passes, and that's how I was able to get up there and try out for the group. And that's how long story short, that's it worked out for me, and I got the call.
And now we're going to go back to this first time you go on stage as a spinner and what it was like. And no, Ronnie, you're not going to be able to piggyback on Mr. Jesse this time. You're going to talk and you're going to tell us what it was like the first time you hit the stage as a spinner.
You want to go first, Jesse?
No.
Okay, I tell you what. Here's mine. This is. I'd never forget this. I'm telling you. So I'm on probation. I'm in the group, but you looked at for like 6 months, right? So my first show was never forget. It was Dennis Edwards and the Temptations in Washington. So now, by me being the smallest in the group, right, they had to alter the suits the best they could because they were old suits. So I goes on stage. I'm already nervous, and we spinning and dancing. Now the sleeve of my shirt then came out, and it's halfway over my hand. And I'm trying to stuff it as we spin. And Henry's looking at me like, what's wrong with this dude? I went through those kind of things, just being nervous with Henry, let alone the group. And then I'm standing next to Henry. I'm performing with him, and I'm just so nervous. I want this to work. We on a show with Dennis Edwards. It's like, oh, man. But I got through it. I got through it. Yep.
Well, and clearly you made probation because you're still here because we talked.
Yeah.
So everything worked out for you fine.
Yeah.
And Jesse.
Well, my first spinner performance, of course, I was nervous, but not for the crowd. I was used to performing before audiences. It was performing on stage with Bobby and Henry. That's the thing that I was nervous about. But as far as I'm a perfectionist, number one. But if you're going on stage with the spinners, you better be ready. You better know your parts. You better know all your steps. This is what I'm saying to myself. I knew the words to the music. I grew up on the spinner, so just like you know what Odu, I knew it too. But yeah, it was wonderful the first time. It was full of awe and majesty and magic and so forth. And I still get caught up in that. I still get swept up in that moment because it reminds me of every movie that we saw, coming up. It reminds me of the Temptations movie. It reminds me of the Five Heartbeat movies. It reminds me of every movie I saw and just watched and just hoped and prayed that one day, that would be me, that I would get to live, that kind of life. So never nervous about the crowd or never nervous about, what's my part or anything like that. I knew all of that. And again, like I said, I would just get lost and just carried away, with the performance. It's when I look to the left or the right and I see Bobby or Henry, it's like, oh, okay, you better make sure, that's where the nervousness comes in. And you want to make sure while you're enjoying the moment that you're doing, this stuff and you spin, that's when you're making sure, because you want to make sure that I'm happy. I'm happy and I'm loving it, but I got to make sure Bobby and Henry are happy and they're loving what I'm doing. And that was always the case. That was one thing I was always happy to hear from Bobby Smith when he was alive, and he would always say, and I love doing his voice, Bobby would always say, man, Jesse, I'm glad we chose you. You a classy guy, and all that guy. I was like, all right, cool. That made me feel good, But it was wonderful. My first time performing, and it's just as wonderful as the last performance we just did. And then the show that we're about to do next week is going to be just as phenomenal. The feeling has not changed over 16 years of spinning. It's still just as wonderful, and there's no nervousness whatsoever.
And speaking of spinning, and you did a little something. When we talk about the spinners, you cannot not talk about choreography. I mean, from day one, when we think about the signature, like in the name, the spinners. So we gonna see spinning. So let's go back then to learning the choreography and the auditions and rehearsals before you started. And even now, like, what is that process like? And what was it like to kind of get it before you went on stage that first time?
Well, for me, it was too doggone long. I've always been a dancer, among other things, but dancing is that's just my thing. I was in high school as a dancer. I was in a dance group on school nights. I'm opening up for the OJs, Millie Jackson, the Manhattans. I was a professional even in school. And I remember being in class the next day, and by my 7th hour French class, I'm just dozing off, in class because I just did a show last night, But learning the steps for me was very easy, and it was actually a joy, because of my love for dancing. It was an absolute pleasure. I just wanted it to move along more quickly because I knew that there was an Africa gig coming up, and I wanted to go to Africa, with the spinners. So Henry would teach me one routine. I would get it quickly. I'm like, okay, let's do the next one. Let's do the next song. Can we do the next? He's like, Henry said, no. He said, take what you just learned, go home, dwell on that, practice it a little bit, and then you can come back tomorrow, and then I'll show you, the next, grasshopper, type of thing. So for me, it was easy. I just wanted it to move along more quickly. And no, I didn't make the Africa show, but I made every show after that.
All right, Ronnie, was it as easy as you, because Jesse has made it a walk through the park. What was it like for you kind of getting these steps together?
I had been away from the routines and all of that stuff. I was doing other things. When I came in, I took the spinners for granted. I really did. I ain't gonna lie. I took it lightly because I figured I could get in there. Oh, I knocked this out, because I've been doing it for years. I knocked this out. And when I came in, they told me, sit down right here and you just watch us. And I looked at them, man, I was like, Mama! Mama! and I had to actually, I live in Atlanta, so I was blessed that my brother lives in Ypsilanti, part of Detroit. And so I was able to stay with him like 3 months because that's how long it took me to get the routines. And I drank, ate spinners. I didn't even look at TV until this stuff sunk into my head. And once it did, I was great, And then being around Jesse and Marvin, them guys dance and stuff, and it was great for me. It was like I got to keep up with these guys, and that got me through. Working with Henry is just like working with Charlie Atkins, which Charlie Atkins is a legend. You should know of all the Temptations, OJs, and he taught. He worked with me like Jesse. He worked with me hand in hand. And I mean, from your fingers, your hands, your arms, everything had to be precise. And he was very particular about those things. And so that's what happened.
And the spinners actually worked with him at Motown. So that is where they come from with that. Because this is my step was the hand up and the pop around the corner with the knee up. Oh, I'm telling you, I was like this big. And I could sit there, da, 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 and woo. Now, I ain't get the voice. That never happened. But the choreography, I mean, that was the time Don Kirshner's rock concert, midnight special,
Yeah,
all those
yeah.
shows that you can watch
Yes.
perform. Oh my God. So yeah. And it's beautiful to see that that is still part of the experience because it is part of the legacy. We got to talk about some music. We got to talk about some music. So I'm going to go with this from both of you. Your favorite song to perform and why?
I've been asked for 16 years. I've been asked that question, and I don't have a favorite song, one song over all the others that I like to do. You know, the best I can tell you is that, of course, I love games people play. That's when I get to do Purpose's famous line, 12:45. You know, that's awesome. That's one of the moments that I get to step out, you know, and do my thing. But I love how we close the show out. The last song we do of the show, usually the last song we do, is Rubber Band Man, and it's just hype when that song begins to play and people hear that rubber band, the crowd gets so excited and we go into the moves, and you know, halfway through the song we turn around and we pull out these giant rubber bands. And, oh yeah, we pull out the brother. You got to come to the show. We pull out the giant rubber bands, start dancing around all crazy. We link the rubber bands up, and the music builds up, and the whole theater goes completely black. You can't say. Then the strobe light pops on. It's 1976 all over again, baby. So now the lights are out, the strobe lights going. You just see the spinners and our rubber bands glowing in the dark while we're bouncing and swinging and turning and all this kind of stuff. And it is just nuts. It's talk about leaving on a high note. Rubber Band Man is a great song to do at the end of the show. It has all the hype and excitement that a concert song should have. So I guess I just said Rubber Band Man is the song.
You know, in this moment, and we understand there's going to be more than one, but just in this moment, that's you know the one that gets you hyped like that. And Ron.
Oh
yeah. Yeah, Jesse's right. I love the ending, but for me, that gets me to that point is the beginning when we come out. When they say the spinners, it just does something to me. When we walk on and we start out with "Could It Be I'm Falling in Love?" That especially in your I'm in the moment, like Jesse says. It's just like I started the first day, and that feeling is still there, and it gets me to the point that Jesse says. But the beginning is for me.
Now y'all got me going. You lucky I didn't get a voice. I'd be coming over there. I'm gonna be the backup spinner. Spinner alternative in case something happened. I just could do this. I could just do this. And it's beautiful. I wanted to ask about the music because I grew up in Philly. So, you know, Philly, like 10-minute walk from the uptown.
Philadelphia is a big part of who the Spinners are, you know, to this very day. You know, it was It's a Shame came out under the Motown record label, and by that time the guys were already tired of waiting, you know, for Berry Gordy to give the Spinners, you know, some attention. Aretha Franklin reached out to the Spinners and suggested they come over to Atlantic Records. So their contract was ending, so the Spinners moved on to Atlantic Records in Philly. At the same time, It's a Shame was coming out, was hitting the airwaves. And the only reason that song got put out is it was written by Stevie Wonder. And Stevie got tired of it sitting on the shelf. You know, the Spinners were working at Motown, I mean, in the mailroom, driving as drivers and all that. Bobby went to the airport to pick up the Jackson 5 and that kind of stuff. So they weren't being used like the Temptations and the Four Tops. So they made their move to Atlantic Records as It's a Shame was coming out because, I guess, Stevie complained, "Hey, I wrote this song. What are you doing? When's it going to end?" So they went ahead and put the song out. And Berry Gordy says, "Okay, I see we got another hit out. Who is that?" And they said they said the Spinners. He said, "Okay, great, get him in here." And they said, "It's too late. They're gone." You know, and from that moment on, all the other big hits, the majority of the hits that we have came out of Philadelphia. We left Motown and really blew up in Philadelphia. And that's where the phrase comes from, Motown Philly. Okay, Motown Philly, baby. So yeah, Philadelphia was a crucial part of the success of the Spinners. So yeah, thank you and all the people of Philadelphia for the ongoing support, through all the decades, up until this time. So yeah, Philly was the place where it really happened and took off.
And there's something for me even about just the presentation and style that I always feel like, because Philly's a show town, like Detroit's a show town. And Philly is not an easy town. Like, you can't just show up in Philly and be like, hey, and people do this. You got to leave about 4 teeth on the stage before people in Philly be like, all right, you did a show. So it does really speak to, again, just the power of the Spinners and the incredible talent of the Spinners, that not just that could happen in Philly, but that they could do that in Philly.